There is just no room in the car. Someone has to stay behind, and it makes the most sense for it to be your son." My mother-in-law said those words while standing in my driveway, surrounded by suitcases and excited children, ready to embark on a family beach trip that had been planned for months. 5 cousins were bouncing with anticipation, climbing into cars, fighting over window seats. And my 8-year-old son Caleb was standing next to me with his little suitcase packed, his sunscreen applied, his beach toys carefully selected, waiting for someone to tell him which car he should get into. But nobody was telling him that, because according to my mother-in-law, there was no car for him to get into. There was no seat with his name on it. There was no room for my son on this family trip. I looked at the 3 cars parked in the driveway. I looked at the 5 cousins who were going. I looked at my mother-in-law's face, that mask of false sympathy she always wore when she was doing something cruel while pretending to be reasonable. And I knew, in that moment, that she was lying. "There are 3 cars," I said slowly, "and 5 cousins. That is plenty of room." "Well, yes, but Mark and Jennifer's car is full with their 3 kids, and Tom and Rachel's car has their 2 plus all the beach equipment, and my car has me and Grandpa and our luggage. There is simply no space for another child." "What about the seat next to you? The passenger seat?" "That is for my purse and the snacks. I need it accessible." "Your purse and snacks are more important than your grandson?" Diane's eyes narrowed just slightly, the only crack in her sympathetic facade. "I did not say that. I said there is no room. These things happen when you are coordinating a large family trip. Someone always has to make sacrifices. And that someone is always Caleb." "Now you are being dramatic. Caleb can come on the next trip. This is not a big deal." But it was a big deal. It was a very big deal. Because Caleb was standing right there, hearing every word, watching his grandmother explain why he was not important enough to make room for. His little face was trying so hard to be brave, but I could see his lower lip trembling, could see his hands gripping the handle of his suitcase like it was a lifeline. "Mom, can we just go?" My husband Kevin called from across the driveway. He was loading a cooler into his sister's car, deliberately not meeting my eyes. "We are burning daylight here." "In a minute, honey. I am just explaining to Michelle why there is no room for Caleb." Kevin did look at me then, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood run cold. He knew. He knew there was room. He knew his mother was lying. And he was going to go along with it anyway. "We will make it up to him," Kevin said. "Maybe we can do something special next weekend, just the 3 of us." "You are leaving our son behind and your solution is maybe next weekend?" "Michelle, please. Do not make a scene in front of everyone." A scene. That is what this was to him. A scene. Not the systematic exclusion of his child from family events. Not the latest in a long pattern of rejection and humiliation. Just a scene that his wife was making because she could not accept that sometimes things did not work out perfectly. I knelt down to Caleb's level, looking into his eyes, trying to communicate everything I felt without saying it out loud. "Sweetheart, do you want to stay home with Mommy? We could have our own special weekend, just the 2 of us." Caleb looked past me at the cars, at his cousins who were already buckled in and chattering excitedly, at the coolers full of snacks and the boogie boards strapped to the roof. Everything he had been looking forward to for weeks. Everything that was being taken away from him. "It is okay, Mommy," he said quietly. "I will stay home. I do not mind." But he did mind. I could hear it in his voice, see it in the slump of his shoulders, feel it in the way he leaned against me for support. He was 8 years old, and he had already learned to hide his disappointment, to pretend that being excluded did not hurt, to make himself small and agreeable so he would not be any more trouble than he already apparently was. I stood up and faced my mother-in-law, my husband, the whole gathered family who was watching this unfold with varying degrees of discomfort. "Fine," Caleb and I will stay home. Have a wonderful trip. I took my son's hand and walked back into the house without looking back. Behind me, I heard car doors slamming, engines starting, the crunch of tires on gravel as 3 cars full of my husband's family drove away to the beach without us. We stood at the living room window together, Caleb and I, and watched them go. "Mommy," he said after the last car disappeared around the corner. "Yes, baby. Why does Grandma not want me to come?" I did not have an answer. I did not have any answers. All I had was a broken heart and a little boy who deserved so much better than this. But I was going to find answers. And I was going to make sure this never happened again. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Michelle Carter. I am 30 years old, and I have been married to my husband Kevin for 9 years. We have 1 child, a beautiful, sensitive boy named Caleb who just turned 8. He has sandy brown hair that never quite lies flat, no matter how much I try to comb it, and blue eyes that seem to see everything, even the things adults try to hide. Caleb is the kind of child who notices when someone is sad before they even know they are sad themselves. He draws pictures for people who are having bad days. He shares his snacks without being asked. He apologizes for things that are not his fault because he cannot stand the thought of anyone being upset with him. He is also, unfortunately, the kind of child who feels rejection deeply and personally. He does not have a thick skin. He does not bounce back quickly. When someone hurts him, that hurt goes down into his bones and stays there, shaping how he sees himself and the world around him. This is what makes my mother-in-law's treatment of him so devastating. Because Diane has been hurting him since he was born, and every rejection, every exclusion, every moment of being made to feel less than has accumulated into a weight that my little boy should never have had to carry. Diane Reynolds is my husband's mother, a retired elementary school teacher who prides herself on being the perfect grandmother. She posts about her grandchildren on social media constantly, shares articles about the importance of intergenerational relationships, and tells anyone who will listen how much family means to her. But the family she talks about does not include Caleb. Not really. Not in the ways that matter. Kevin is the middle child of 3. His older sister Jennifer is married to Mark, and they have 3 children, twins named Emma and Ethan who are 10, and a younger son named Dylan who is 6. His younger brother Tom is married to Rachel, and they have 2 children, a daughter named Sophia who is 9, and a son named Lucas who is 7. That is 5 cousins for Caleb. 5 children who should be his playmates, his friends, his companions through all the family gatherings and holidays and ordinary Sundays that make up a childhood. Instead, they are reminders of everything he is not. Everything he does not have. Everything that has been denied to him. The favoritism started early. When Jennifer had the twins, they were the first grandchildren, and Diane lost her mind with joy. She threw baby showers and bought matching outfits and started college funds and redecorated her guest room as a nursery so the babies could stay over whenever their parents needed a break. When Tom and Rachel had Sophia, same thing. More celebrating, more gifts, more attention lavished on the new addition to the family. But when Caleb was born, something was different. Diane came to the hospital, looked at him in his little bassinet, and said, "He is smaller than the others were." That was it. Not, "He is beautiful," or "I am so happy," or any of the things grandmothers usually say. Just, "He is smaller than the others were." Like she was comparing him to a standard and finding him lacking. I told myself it did not mean anything. I told myself Diane was just tired, or distracted, or not good at expressing herself in the moment. I told myself that she would warm up to Caleb as he grew, that she would come to love him as much as she loved her other grandchildren. I was so naive. The differences became clearer as Caleb got older. Diane babysat the other grandchildren regularly, but always had an excuse when I asked her to watch Caleb. She was busy. She was not feeling well. She had plans with her friends. Every rejection wrapped in a reasonable-sounding explanation that somehow never applied when Jennifer or Rachel needed help. Diane sent birthday cards to all the grandchildren, but Caleb's always arrived late, if they arrived at all. I must have lost track of the dates, she would say. There are so many grandchildren to keep track of. But she never lost track of Emma and Ethan's birthday. She never forgot Sophia or Lucas or Dylan. Diane took the grandchildren on special outings, trips to the zoo and the museum and the children's theater. But somehow there was never room for Caleb. The group was too big already. The timing did not work out. Maybe next time. There was always a next time. But next time never came. Kevin insisted I was imagining things. His mother loved all her grandchildren equally, he said. She just had a different way of showing it with Caleb. He was quieter than the other kids, more introverted. Maybe she did not know how to connect with him as easily. Then she should try harder, I said. He is her grandson. She should be making the effort. She is trying, Michelle. You just do not see it. But I did see it. I saw everything. I saw the way Diane's eyes lit up when the other grandchildren ran to hug her, and the way that light dimmed just slightly when Caleb approached. I saw the gifts piled high for Emma and Ethan and Sophia and Lucas and Dylan, while Caleb received the minimum, the afterthought, the item purchased at the last minute because someone remembered he existed. I saw my son watching all of this, learning that there was something wrong with him, something that made him unlovable, something that set him apart from the other children in a way he could not understand or fix. I documented everything, not because I was paranoid, but because I knew that eventually I would need to prove what was happening. I kept a journal of every slight, every exclusion, every time Caleb was treated differently from his cousins. I saved text messages and emails. I took photos at family gatherings that showed Caleb standing alone while the other children clustered around Diane. The first entry in my journal was from when Caleb was 2 years old. Diane had organized an Easter egg hunt for all the grandchildren at her house. The other kids had beautiful personalized baskets with their names embroidered on the handles. Caleb had a plastic grocery bag. I ran out of time to get him a basket, Diane said when I pointed it out. It is not a big deal. He does not know the difference. But he did know the difference. Even at 2 years old, he could see that his cousins had something special and he did not. He carried that plastic bag around the yard, collecting his few eggs, while the other children showed off their fancy baskets. The second entry was from a few months later. Diane had taken Emma and Sophia to get professional photos taken with Santa Claus at the mall. She did not invite Caleb. I forgot he was old enough for those now, she said. Maybe next year. Next year came and went. Caleb never got a Santa photo with his grandmother. The third entry, the fourth, the fifth. The journal filled up faster than I expected. Page after page of evidence that my son was being pushed to the margins of his own family. There was the time Diane threw a huge birthday party for the twins but told us Caleb was too young to attend, even though Dylan, who was 2 years younger, was there. There was the time Diane bought matching Christmas outfits for all the grandchildren except Caleb because she could not find one in his size. There was the time Diane announced she was taking the grandchildren to Disney World, then quietly removed Caleb from the invitation because the trip was getting too complicated with that many kids. Each entry broke my heart a little more, and each entry made me more determined to eventually do something about it. The beach trip was supposed to be different. It was planned months in advance, a big family vacation to celebrate the end of summer. Diane had rented a beach house big enough for everyone, had coordinated carpools and meal plans and activity schedules. She had made it clear that this was a trip for the whole family, all 3 of her children and their spouses and their children together for one glorious week by the ocean. Caleb was so excited. He talked about it constantly. He practiced swimming at the local pool so he would be ready for the waves. He made a list of all the sandcastles he wanted to build and all the shells he wanted to collect. He asked me every single day how many more sleeps until the beach trip. I wanted to be excited too. I wanted to believe that this time would be different, that Diane would include Caleb, that he would finally have the family experience he deserved. But I should have known. I should have seen it coming. The first sign was the seating chart. 2 weeks before the trip, Diane sent out an email with all the logistics. Who was riding in which car, who was staying in which bedroom, who was responsible for which meals. It was detailed and organized, exactly the kind of thing Diane excelled at. But Caleb's name was not on the seating chart. I read through the email 3 times, thinking I must have missed it. Jennifer's kids were in their minivan. Tom's kids were in their SUV with the beach equipment. Kevin was supposed to ride with his mother to help navigate. I was listed as a passenger in Jennifer's car. Caleb was not listed anywhere. I called Kevin immediately. Did you see your mother's email? Caleb is not on the carpool list. What? That cannot be right. Let me check. I heard him scrolling through his phone, the pause as he read the email, the sigh that told me everything. She probably just forgot to include him. I will call her and sort it out. She planned this whole trip down to who is bringing the sunscreen, and she forgot to include her grandson? Michelle, please. I will handle it. He said he would handle it. He always said he would handle it. And somehow, things never got handled. A week went by. I asked Kevin what happened with the seating chart. He said he had talked to his mother, that it was all worked out, that Caleb would ride with us and there was nothing to worry about. I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe that for once, my son would not be left behind. The morning of the trip, we arrived at Diane's house with our bags packed and our hopes up. Caleb was practically vibrating with excitement, chattering about all the things he was going to do at the beach, pointing out which boogie board he wanted to use, asking which cousins he was going to ride with. And then Diane walked over and shattered everything. Michelle, can I talk to you for a moment? About the car situation. I felt my stomach drop. I thought Kevin sorted that out. Well, the thing is, when we really crunched the numbers, there just is not room for everyone. We are at maximum capacity with all the kids and the luggage and the beach equipment. Someone has to stay behind. And you decided that someone should be Caleb. Diane spread her hands in a gesture of helpless regret. It is not ideal, I know. But Jennifer's kids cannot miss the trip. They have been looking forward to it all summer. And Tom's kids, well, Rachel would be so upset if they could not come. It just makes sense for the youngest family to sit this one out. Caleb is not the youngest grandchild. Dylan is 6. Yes, but Dylan is traveling with his parents, so he takes up less space logistically. Caleb would need his own seat in his own car, and we just do not have that available. The excuses were so smooth, so practiced. She had clearly thought this through, prepared her responses for any objection I might raise. This was not a last-minute logistics problem. This was a plan. A deliberate, premeditated plan to exclude my son. What about Kevin? He was supposed to ride with you. Caleb could take his seat. Kevin needs to ride with me to help navigate. I am not comfortable driving long distances alone. Then I will drive with you, and Kevin can stay home with Caleb. Diane's face tightened. That would not work. Kevin specifically wanted to come on this trip. I do not think it is fair to make him choose between his family and his son. His son is his family. Caleb is his family. You know what I mean. I did know what she meant. I knew exactly what she meant. Kevin's real family was his mother and his siblings and their children. Caleb and I were something else. Something that did not quite fit. Something that could be left behind when the real family needed more space. That is when Kevin walked over and said we were burning daylight. That is when Caleb asked me why there was no room for him. That is when I took my son's hand and walked back into the house and watched our family drive away without us. The weekend was painful. Caleb tried to be brave, tried to act like staying home was just as fun as going to the beach. We watched movies and made popcorn and played board games and did all the things that parents do when they are trying to distract a heartbroken child from their heartbreak. On Saturday morning, I suggested we go to the local pool. Caleb shrugged and said okay, but there was none of the enthusiasm he had shown when packing for the beach. The pool was not the ocean. The concrete deck was not the sand. The lifeguard's whistle was not the sound of waves. We set up our towels by the shallow end, and I watched Caleb float listlessly on a pool noodle, staring up at the sky. Other families were there, laughing and splashing, and every time a grandmother arrived with her grandchildren, Caleb would watch them with this hungry expression that made my chest ache. "Hey buddy, want to race?" I asked, trying to inject some energy into the day. "Okay." We raced. He won, because I let him, and when I pretended to be devastated by my loss, he gave me a small smile. But it was not the real smile, the one that lit up his whole face. It was the smile he used when he wanted to make me feel better about how he was feeling. That night, I let him stay up late and eat ice cream for dinner. Rules did not matter this weekend. What mattered was showing my son that he was loved, even when other people made him feel otherwise. We set up a tent in the living room and pretended we were camping on the beach. I played ocean sounds from my phone and we made s'mores over the gas stove and told ghost stories until Caleb fell asleep in his sleeping bag with a smile on his face. It was a good moment, but it was not the trip he had been promised. It was not the week with his cousins that he had been looking forward to for months. It was a consolation prize, and we both knew it, but I could see it in his eyes. The confusion, the hurt, the growing realization that there was something about him that made people not want him around. "Mommy, do you think I did something wrong?" he asked on the second night, when we were eating pizza on the couch because I could not be bothered to cook. "No, baby. You did not do anything wrong." "Then why could I not go to the beach?" "Because..." I hesitated, not sure how much truth an 8-year-old could handle. "Because sometimes adults make decisions that do not make sense, and sometimes those decisions are not fair." Grandma said there was no room, but I saw the cars. They looked like they had room. He was right. He had seen exactly what I had seen. And unlike me, he did not have years of making excuses and giving benefit of the doubt. He just saw the truth. "You are very observant, sweetheart." Emma said I could sit next to her. She asked her mom and her mom said it was fine. But then Grandma said no. I went very still. Emma asked if you could ride with her? "Yeah." When we were loading the cars. She said there was lots of room and I could share her seatbelt because she is bigger than me. But Grandma heard and said that was not safe and I had to stay home. Jennifer had agreed to make room for Caleb. Her own car had space, and Diane had overruled her, had insisted that my son stay behind, had manufactured an excuse to keep him from the trip. This was not about logistics. This was not about space. This was about something much darker. "Thank you for telling me that, Caleb. I am going to figure this out, okay? I promise." He nodded, trusting me the way children trust their mothers, believing that I could fix anything. And I was determined to prove him right. After Caleb fell asleep that night, I called Jennifer. I needed to know the truth, all of it, without the filters and excuses that usually came through Kevin. "Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." There was a pause on the other end. Then, "This is about Caleb staying home, is not it?" "Yes. He told me that Emma asked if he could ride with you, and that you said yes. Is that true?" Another pause, longer this time. "Michelle, I do not want to get in the middle of this." "You are already in the middle of it. My son is at home crying himself to sleep because he thinks there is something wrong with him. I need to know what really happened." Jennifer sighed heavily. "Yes, Emma asked if Caleb could ride with us. She loves Caleb, She was really disappointed that he was not coming. I told her we could make room. We have a 7-seater and we only had 5 people including the kids. There was plenty of space. So why is Caleb at home? Because Mom said no. She said it would mess up the seating arrangement she had planned, that it would cause problems with the other kids, that it was better for Caleb to stay home this time and come on the next trip. Was there ever going to be a next trip? Jennifer was quiet. That silence told me everything. She planned this from the beginning, did she not? She never intended for Caleb to come. I do not know for sure. But, Michelle, I have seen the way she is with Caleb. We all have. We just do not know how to talk about it. You have seen it and you have not said anything? What was I supposed to say? She is my mother. And every time I try to bring it up, she acts like I am crazy, like I am imagining things. She is very good at making you feel like you are the problem for even noticing. So you just let her exclude my son over and over again? I am sorry. I really am. But you do not understand what it is like to be her daughter. She has expectations, and if you do not meet them, she makes your life miserable. I have to think about my own kids too. I understood the fear. I did. Diane had a way of punishing people who crossed her, of making you pay for any challenge to her authority. But understanding did not make it okay. My son was suffering because the adults in his life were too afraid to stand up to one controlling woman. Thank you for being honest with me, Jennifer. I appreciate it. What are you going to do? I do not know yet. But something. I have to do something. I spent the rest of the weekend planning. I was done making excuses, done hoping things would get better, done sacrificing my son's well-being on the altar of family harmony. The harmony was an illusion anyway, a pretty surface covering rot underneath. When Kevin came home from the beach trip, tan and relaxed and full of stories about the fun they had, I was waiting for him. We need to talk. He must have heard something in my voice, because his smile faded immediately. What is wrong? Everything. Everything is wrong. And it has been wrong for a long time, but I have been too afraid to face it. I told him what Jennifer had said. I told him about the empty seats, the manufactured excuses, the deliberate exclusion of our son. I told him about all the times Diane had found ways to leave Caleb behind, and all the times Kevin had made excuses for her. This is not a misunderstanding, Kevin. This is not bad logistics. Your mother does not want our son around, and she has been working to exclude him for years. Kevin sat down heavily on the couch, his face pale. That cannot be true. She is his grandmother. She loves him. Does she? Can you tell me one time she has gone out of her way to include Caleb? One trip she took him on without being forced? One activity she planned with him in mind? He could not. The silence stretched between us, filled with all the moments he should have noticed and did not. I did not want to see it, he finally said. She is my mother. I wanted to believe she was a good person. She might be a good person to you, but she is not a good grandmother to our son. And I cannot keep letting Caleb pay the price for your loyalty to her. What do you want me to do? I want you to stand up for your son. I want you to tell your mother that her behavior is unacceptable. I want you to choose Caleb over keeping the peace. Kevin was quiet for a long time. I could see him wrestling with it, the pull between the family he grew up with and the family he had made. She is going to be furious, he said. I know. It might change everything. The holidays, the gatherings, our whole relationship with my side of the family. I know that too. But Caleb is watching, Kevin. He is learning from us what he is worth. Do you want him to learn that he is worth sacrificing for your mother's comfort? Kevin looked at me, really looked, and I saw something shift in his eyes. A decision being made. No, I do not want that. Then we need to make a change. A real change, not just promises that get forgotten. We talked late into the night, making plans, setting boundaries, preparing for the battle ahead. Because it would be a battle. Diane would not give up her control easily. She would fight, manipulate, try to turn other family members against us. But we were ready. For the first time in 8 years, we were ready to put our son first. The confrontation with Diane happened 3 days later. We invited her over for dinner, just the 3 of us, under the pretense of showing her photos from Caleb's summer camp. She arrived in a good mood, still glowing from the beach trip, completely oblivious to what was coming. She brought a bottle of wine and a casserole, the perfect image of a caring mother-in-law. She hugged Kevin, kissed me on the cheek, and asked where her grandson was. "He is at a friend's house," I said. "We thought it would be better to have this conversation without him." Diane's smile faltered just slightly. "What conversation?" We sat her down in the living room. Kevin sat next to me on the couch, our united front sending a clear message. This was not just me with a complaint. This was both of us, standing together. "Diane, we need to talk about what happened with the beach trip," I said. Her expression immediately turned wary. "What about it?" I explained the situation. "There was not enough room." "That is not true, and we all know it. Jennifer told me there was plenty of room in her car. Emma asked if Caleb could ride with them, and you said no." Diane's face hardened. Jennifer does not know what she is talking about. The seating arrangements were complicated. They were not complicated. You deliberately excluded our son from a family trip. Again. I did no such thing. You are being paranoid, Michelle. You always look for reasons to accuse me of something. Kevin spoke up for the first time. "Mom, I saw the photos from the trip. There were empty seats in Jennifer's car. The story you told us about there being no room was not true." Diane turned to her son, her expression shifting to wounded disbelief. "Kevin, you cannot seriously be taking her side in this." "There are no sides, Mom. There is just the truth. And the truth is that you have been treating Caleb differently from the other grandchildren for his entire life." I had expected denial. I had prepared for it. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos from the trip that had been posted to the family group chat. "Look at this picture from the drive down. That is Jennifer's car. I count 3 children in the back seat and 2 adults in front. The car seats 7. Where are the other 2 seats?" Diane's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Those seats were folded down for luggage." "And this picture from the beach house. The living room. I count how many kids. 5. Plenty of bedrooms. Plenty of space. But no room for Caleb. I am not going to sit here and be interrogated about logistics. This is not about logistics. This is about a pattern of excluding our son from family activities. I have been documenting it for years, Diane. Every missed birthday party. Every trip he was not invited to. Every time you found an excuse to leave him behind." I pulled out the journal. The thick notebook filled with 6 years of careful documentation. I handed it to her. Page 1. Easter egg hunt, 2018. All the grandchildren got personalized baskets except Caleb, who got a plastic grocery bag. I watched her face as she read. Page 7. Christmas 2019. You bought matching pajamas for all the grandchildren except Caleb because you could not find one in his size. I have the receipt from when I bought him the same pajamas, in his size, at the same store you claimed did not have them. Her face went from angry to defensive to something that looked almost like fear. Page 15. Disney World trip, 2020. You told us Caleb was too young to go, even though Lucas, who is younger than Caleb, was on the trip. I have the photos. You have been spying on me? I have been protecting my son. There is a difference. Diane turned to Kevin, her expression pleading. Kevin, are you going to let her attack me like this? I am your mother. Kevin met her eyes steadily. Everything Michelle said is true, Mom. I have been making excuses for you for years because I did not want to see it. But I see it now. And it stops today. What do you mean, it stops? I mean we are done. No more family gatherings until you can treat Caleb like he matters. No more holidays, no more birthday parties, no more trips. If Caleb is not welcome, then neither are we. Diane's face went white. You cannot be serious. I am your mother. I am his grandmother. Then act like it. Love him like you love the other grandchildren. Include him. Make him feel wanted. And until you can do that, we are taking a break from this family. The explosion that followed was everything I had expected and worse. Diane cried, accused, manipulated, threatened. She said we were breaking her heart, destroying the family, punishing her for things she did not do. She demanded that Kevin choose between her and me, between his mother and his wife. But Kevin held firm. For the first time ever, he held firm. I am not choosing between you and Michelle. I am choosing my son. Every time from now on, I will choose my son. If that means losing you, then I will grieve that loss. But I will not sacrifice Caleb anymore. Diane left in tears, threatening to never speak to us again. The door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. Kevin and I sat in the aftermath, holding hands, emotionally exhausted but strangely at peace. That was the hardest thing I have ever done, he said. I know. I am proud of you. Do you think she will change? I do not know. But whether she does or not, Caleb will know that his parents stood up for him. That is what matters. The fallout was significant. Diane told her version of events to everyone who would listen, painting us as ungrateful and cruel. Some family members took her side. Others reached out privately to say they understood, that they had seen how Caleb was treated, that they were glad someone was finally speaking up. Kevin's Aunt Margaret called me a few days after the confrontation. She had always been kind to Caleb, one of the few extended family members who made a point to include him. I heard what happened with Diane, she said. I just wanted you to know that I think you did the right thing. Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot. She has been doing this for years, you know. Not just to Caleb. She did it to her own children too, playing favorites, making them compete for her attention. Kevin probably does not remember because he was in the middle, not quite the favorite but not quite the scapegoat either. Who was the scapegoat? Tom, the youngest. He got the worst of it growing up. That is probably why his kids get treated better now, actually. Diane feels guilty about how she treated him. It was a piece of the puzzle I had not expected. The favoritism was not random. It was a pattern that had been playing out for generations, a cycle of hurt that kept repeating because no one had ever broken it. How did you break the cycle with your own kids? I asked. Therapy. A lot of therapy. And making a conscious choice every single day to treat my children equally, even when my instincts were telling me to play favorites. It is not easy, but it is possible. I thanked her for her honesty and hung up with a new understanding of what we were dealing with. Diane was not evil. She was damaged, repeating patterns from her own childhood without understanding why. That did not excuse her behavior, but it did help explain it. The first few months were the hardest. Holidays came and went without invitations. Caleb asked why we were not going to Grandma's house, and we explained, in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes families need to take breaks from each other. Meanwhile, Caleb flourished. Without the constant rejection from his grandmother, without the comparisons to his cousins, Without the message that he was not quite good enough, he began to open up. He made new friends at school, real friends who invited him to birthday parties and playdates. His grades improved as his anxiety decreased. He laughed more freely and worried less about what other people thought of him. His third-grade teacher noticed the change. "Caleb seems like a different kid this semester," she told me at parent-teacher conferences. "More confident, more willing to participate in class. Whatever you are doing at home, keep doing it." What we were doing at home was removing the source of his pain. It sounded so simple, but it had taken 8 years and a complete break with Kevin's family to accomplish. He was becoming the person he was always meant to be, the person that years of subtle exclusion had been slowly crushing. Jennifer reached out about 18 months after our confrontation with Diane. She wanted to meet for coffee, just the two of us. "I wanted to apologize," she said, "for not standing up for Caleb sooner. For going along with Mom's behavior because it was easier than fighting." "Thank you. That means a lot. Mom has been different since you cut her off. Quieter. Less sure of herself. I think losing Kevin really shook her." "Has she said anything about wanting to make things right?" Jennifer hesitated. "She talks about missing Caleb. She says she did not realize how much until he was not around anymore." "Does she understand why we pulled away?" "I think she is starting to. She has been going to therapy, actually. Her doctor suggested it after she had a bit of a breakdown around Caleb's last birthday." I was surprised. Diane, the woman who thought therapy was for weak people, was actually getting professional help. "That is good. That is a real step. She asked me to give you something." Jennifer pulled an envelope from her purse. "She said she was not ready to face you in person yet, but she wanted to say it in writing." I took the envelope home and opened it that night, after Caleb was in bed. It was a letter from Diane. Handwritten, 6 pages long. The handwriting was shaky in places, like she had been crying while she wrote. She apologized. Really apologized, not the defensive non-apologies she had offered before. She admitted that she had treated Caleb differently from the other grandchildren, that she had found excuses to exclude him, that she had not understood her own behavior until she was forced to examine it. She wrote about her childhood, about her own mother who had played favorites, about the way she had internalized that pattern without realizing it. She wrote about her fear of being too close to Caleb, for reasons she did not fully understand but was working to uncover in therapy. She wrote that she did not expect us to forgive her. She just wanted us to know that she was working on herself, that she was trying to become the grandmother Caleb deserved, even if it was too late for her to be part of his life. I cried when I finished reading. Not because the letter fixed everything, but because it was the first time Diane had ever taken real responsibility. The first time she had acknowledged her behavior without minimizing or deflecting. I read certain passages over and over, trying to absorb them. I look at the photos from those trips, the ones Caleb was not part of, and I feel sick. He should have been in every single one. He should have been building sandcastles with his cousins, not sitting at home wondering why his grandmother did not want him there. I know now that what I did was not about logistics or space or any of the excuses I gave. It was about something broken inside me, something that made me repeat patterns I should have recognized and stopped. I do not expect you to forgive me. I am not sure I deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I am working every day to become the person I should have been for Caleb from the beginning. I showed the letter to Kevin. He cried too. "She sounds different," he said. "Like she actually gets it. Maybe. Or maybe she has just learned to say the right words." "What do we do now?" "I do not know. I need to think about it." It took another 3 months before we were ready to try again. We started small, a single meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Caleb was hesitant at first, unsure what to expect from the grandmother who had hurt him so many times. I talked to him the night before the meeting, wanting to prepare him for whatever might happen. Sweetheart, Grandma wants to see you tomorrow. How do you feel about that? He thought about it, his face serious in a way that broke my heart. 8 years old and already so practiced at protecting himself from disappointment. I do not know. What if she is still mean? Then we will leave. Daddy and I will be right there the whole time. If you feel uncomfortable, you just give us a signal and we will go home immediately. What kind of signal? How about you say you need to go to the bathroom? That will be our code. He nodded, satisfied with the plan. Okay, I will try. But Mommy. Yes, baby. What if she is nice? What if she is different? Is it okay to give her another chance? My heart swelled with pride at his capacity for forgiveness, at his willingness to hope despite everything he had been through. Yes, sweetheart. It is always okay to give people another chance. Just remember that trust has to be earned. If Grandma wants to be part of your life again, she has to prove that she means it. The meeting went better than I expected. Diane was nervous, visibly so, her hands shaking as she held her coffee cup. She got down to Caleb's level and looked him in the eyes and said the words I had been waiting years to hear. Caleb, I am so sorry for all the times I made you feel like you were not important. You are important. You have always been important. I was just too foolish to see it. Caleb studied her face for a long moment, with that perceptive gaze that missed nothing. He was looking for sincerity, for truth, for evidence that this time was different from all the other times. Do you mean it, Grandma? For real. For real. And I am going to prove it, if you will let me. He thought about it. Then he said, okay, but Mommy says people have to earn trust. So you have to earn mine. Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. You are right. I will earn it. I promise. That was 2 years ago. Caleb is 10 now, and his relationship with his grandmother is still a work in progress. There are good days and bad days, moments of connection and moments of awkwardness. Diane still makes mistakes sometimes, falls back into old patterns, has to be reminded of the boundaries we set. But she catches herself now. She recognizes when she is slipping and corrects course. She asks questions instead of making assumptions. She includes Caleb in everything, actively makes sure he is part of every plan and every gathering. Last month, she called me to discuss Christmas arrangements. I am making a list of gifts for all the grandchildren, she said. I want to make sure I spend the same amount on each child. Can you double-check my math? It was such a small thing, but it meant everything. She was trying to be fair, actively working to avoid the favoritism that had come so naturally to her before. The list looks good, I told her. Thank you for checking. I never want Caleb to feel like less than again. I know I cannot undo the past, but I can make sure the future is different. She is becoming the grandmother he always deserved. I do not think she will ever fully understand the damage she caused, the years of rejection that left scars on my son's heart. But she is doing her best to heal what she can, and that has to count for something. The last family trip was different. A weekend at a lake house, all 3 of Kevin's siblings and their families. When we arrived, Diane had set up a special welcome for Caleb, a banner with his name on it, his favorite snacks in the kitchen, a bedroom decorated just for him. I wanted to make sure you knew there was room for you, she told him. There will always be room for you. Caleb smiled, that bright, open smile that I had not seen enough of in his early years. Thanks, Grandma. This is really cool. I stood back and watched them together, this grandmother and grandson who had traveled such a difficult road to get here. It was not the relationship I had dreamed of when Caleb was born. It was better, in a way, because it had been earned, fought for, built on the foundation of accountability and change. That is what I want other mothers to know. You do not have to accept mistreatment of your child. You do not have to keep the peace at your child's expense. You can draw lines, set boundaries, demand better. And sometimes, if you are lucky and persistent and brave, the people who hurt your child can learn to do better. Not always. Some relationships cannot be repaired. Some people are not capable of change. But you will never know until you try, until you stand up and say, "This is not acceptable," and see what happens. Your child is watching. Your child is learning. Your child needs to know that they are worth fighting for. Be the mother who fights. Thank you for listening to my journey of discovering what motherhood truly means. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, each for mothers who learned that protecting a child can mean standing alone against those once called family. Choose the one that speaks to you. And if you want to join a community of parents who fight for their children, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, blood connects us, but a mother's love protects us.